So let me introduce our speaker. We know each other for I think quite a long time now, and we wanted to meet once in Kiev, which didn't happen because I couldn't fly in that particular time somehow. But we keep chatting with each other. We keep seeing each other and discussed a lot of stuff in gaming industry and how things can be done mutually in a collaborative way regarding funding, how things can be nurtured and things can be mature enough. So we have an interesting topic from my friend Sigur, and he is the founder of Draxler Music. Let me introduce him in my way. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us have Sigur in the podium, and he is the founder of Draxler Music, and we are going to have interesting topic called M Media. So while I'm introducing my speaker, I'm admitting everyone. So I'm doing some multitasking with my phone as well as managing the whole hosting. So I can see a number of people are trying to join. So for all of you again, kindly turn off your video mode as well as your microphone so that we can have uninterrupted session. It's a beautiful concept, interesting one, where we are eager to understand and learn about the new methodology that combines the lifestyle with gamification. So my first and foremost question and my first and foremost request to our speaker is if he can introduce himself, and we can go to directly to the question like what is new in media and what is this all about. So over to you. I'll keep myself mute so that there is no interruption from me as well.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have you like have yourself mute, man. It's I'm not didn't really prepare any talk. It's just a webinar kind of thing where we can have an interactive conversation, and you can see I'm not in my suit or anything. I'm just in my family cabin here in Iceland, so it's a pretty chill format that we have here. Yeah, but I decided to like have a conversation about this media thing since I know that you have been a lot into mythicism and culture and just how to take the concept of play, that's the man who plays, and make it real. That like take something from the fantasy department and take it to like actuality, right? And know that you have been, for example, into video games and cosplay and like all of that, where you literally take something from the screen that is characters and so forth, and you literally dress yourself into the concept. You literally dress yourself into the content. And yeah, we were trying to meet in Kiev, and what I was talking about in Kiev and have been talking about this media concept, it basically derived from the idea that every time I go to conferences internationally, people who talk about the future of media and future of tech and future of entertainment and gaming and so forth, they're always talking about the technology. They are not talking about how you approach the users, right? So you always see when you, for example, it's always a new hype. You talk about
Your voice is not. We can't hear you.
can, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
it's fine. There's fine now. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's you have like a lot of nerds in an exhibition space talking about here's my new product and here's my new product, but they don't necessarily take like the fact in what's the good new innovation, right? How can you distribute something over time over like a mass of people, right? So in our opinion, we developed this concept called media, which is quite a tactical concept, which is social media driven platforms where consumers use gamified behaviors to express themselves through concept, right? It's a pretty complex idea, but then it takes on the fact that when you use a digital product, then we believe in this post-digital world that you have to have real life value out of a digital experience, right? And to do that, you can use several tactics, but we use basically two tactics, both in my company and just where we are like working with other companies. It's a gamification and also lifestyle branding. And with gamification, it's has been often used as a gimmick with like several companies. For example, in energy companies where they're like comparing prices, they have non-smoking campaigns where they're like trying to use gamification to like let people like stop smoking and so forth. But almost always they don't have a game developer on site, and they don't like develop a game with the gamification program as they would like actually develop a game, right? So you see those game development communities, for example, those in India that you have been managing. It's a pretty tight-knit community, and they most often just work in the gaming development space, right? They don't like use those talent to work with, for example, energy companies, with, for example, automobile companies, and like, you know, so forth. Um, so there are really few media companies out there that you can like say, this is a good media company because they go to a main value proposition, they take digital experiences and actually make real value out, like out of them. But I think the only one, except for us and the how-to company that we have been like talking with, is, for example, Tinder. Tinder is a really good media company that you could actually put into the bracket, right? They take the game dating, right, that you all know, it's like a lot of patterns, right? They put it in a digital form with a really simple game mechanics. And the end goal is that you can get a real value, that is, you can meet the guy or like or a girl after you actually chat with them in like this digital space, right? So that's like the bottom layer of the media thing. And we believe, especially now where you are forced to be at home and we don't know how long this situation will last, that you have to take this concept of, you know, like blurring the boundaries between reality and fantasy. And you see this in Asia a lot, for example, in South Korea and Japan. You can't really figure out what's the fantasy and like what's the reality, because it's such a blurred like boundaries between, right? And we believe to merge those cultures together and make I think it's a really relevant concept today, given that we have to be inside and there's like this disruption going on. We are talking about before the coronavirus and after the coronavirus and what's going to happen. That is not enough to, you know, just like make an app where you can save money, or like make an app where you can actually do this. You have to create something that takes us out of this thought of reality that we live in and add fantasy to it. And that's the basis of the media concept. And you can apply it to several industries. You can apply it to the smart home industry, you can apply it to advertising industry. I believe there should be a game designer in every advertisement entity on the planet, just to apply, like, you know, gamification tactics, right? But it's a concept that I wanted to develop, like collectively at conferences and, like, you know, webinars like this, because this is a fairly new concept, and you can use technology like VR or AR especially to like progress this idea, or like progress this new media category, so to say. But I just generally don't believe that virtual reality is the next wave in tech or like media, and I don't believe that AR is the next wave in tech or media. I think we have to connect the people through like people's minds, and not just like, you know, the hands and the text and so forth. And you just see how like radio is basically developed, and, you know, TV and cinema, and like those mediums that have a really deep emotional connections to the user, and don't, like, you know, it isn't about, you know, watching a screen and just seeing images on the screen. And the innovation is not a new thing. You can watch something on the screen and it moves. It's like it, you know, those are stories, and you immerse yourself into like a storytelling setting. And I just don't believe that AR and VR and mixed reality, or whatever you call it, have this strong, like as strong emotional connection to the user as it should be if it would be the next like wave in the media space, right? You have to do something that completely changes the way how you interact with content. And I think this media is like the first step, at least, to just imagine, because just to start the conversation with you, you are like a lot into cosplay and, like, you know, all of that, you know, like small subcultures that come together and they dress themselves into something, into their favorite character. But the thing is, this is not like a democratized thing, and this is not a commercialized thing, because there's a fairly small portion of society that actually behaves like this. you wouldn't see someone, for example, dressed as Chewbacca on the street, right? You would have to have like a, an event or like something like that, right? But I believe that's like apart from Tinder in the digital space, in the actual space, like cosplaying might be like from the physical end, like the nearest thing where we got to like this media concept. Although it's almost only physical, right? People come together, they have parts, and they have, make a game out of it, right? And I think just because I don't know what kind of people I'm sorry are actually at this webinar, but I would think it would be game developers, for example, and people in the mobile app space or like something like that, right?
Well,
Just
let me tell you what kind of people we usually have in our webinars. So it actually
mhm,
depends on the subject line, and
mhm,
I can see people who are actually. So I always filter out people. I mean, it's not open for everyone, right?
mhm,
So I usually ask them that what is their background, and I can see people who have joined here. They have decent background from technology, virtual
mhm,
reality, game development. I can see
mhm,
a few of
mhm.
the startups who have actually joined, and I can
Okay.
see another one, Mr. Manoj, he actually joined. So we don't know each other. He's also there in the webinar. So I'll be mentioning
Okay.
each and every one of them. Don't worry. People visually start interacting with you after you are done. I mean, after you are done your, your presentation or your speech and all. So they usually maintain the process of asking question in the chat box, and I
Okay.
usually take those question and ask you. So I have a question for you. It's from me actually.
Mhm,
So we actually did East India's first cosplay show with my own superheroes, which we
mhm,
created so far, for
mhm,
so long time.
mhm,
And to be very honest, it was completely new concept,
mhm,
at least in eastern part of India, right? So
mhm,
when we started asking them to participate within the participants, it was a
mhm,
huge cost from my end. So I was actually doing it to make a ecosystem, vibrant ecosystem. There was no monetization aspect of it. But when I
mhm,
do the same thing, to be very honest, when I do the same thing in maybe some uh, Asian country, I get a different kind of mileage, and I do get sponsors. I do get, you can say, a lot of development companies who have their own character. They'd love to put their character into our shows. We started building the ecosystem. You know,
mhm,
so when you talk about virtual reality, augmented reality, making something interesting for people,
mhm,
most probably you are trying to say it's neuromarketing, right? So neuromarketing is a concept where you're actually playing with customer mind, and it's about
mhm,
the user experience that you want to give. I completely
mhm,
agree with you. Till date, we
mhm,
don't have that kind of process which is
mhm,
connecting each and everyone in the market about whether you talk about VR or AR. I mean, it's a
mhm,
complete new concept. It
mhm,
depends on the ecosystem, how we are adopting it and how you are grabbing it. On the same
mhm,
time, I have a question for you.
mhm.
What is your belief, what is your thought process that how you want to monetize a media using different mediums like XR, VR, AR, game development? I mean, forget about gamification. Gamification is a process, so that can
Mhm.
be integrated into a lot of different technology. But what's your take? What's your take? What is your monetization model? How do you want to monetize it?
For example, with AR, when you're actually splicing together one like thing like with the other, and you make filters and like so forth, you have to ask yourself what is your digital identity and what is your real identity, right? What is the actual difference, right? And now those are actually two things. It's me and the actual screen, right? But if you could somehow monetize on the belief and on the ideology that you are one with the content, that's that's a pretty strong value proposition. And for example, also just to take something outside of games, like just to like try to theorize how it could work not only as a game, because it's really easy to say AR, you can sell filters and you can use microtransactions and like all of that's the basics, right? Because that's the like revenue models in the gaming space that you all know. Just for example, think technology that people are not using that much. For example, the smart home, like IoT industry, right? Where you take several smart devices and they talk to each other, right? It's a really like tech-based industry for a really small niche group that understand the industry, right? And then there's a smart meter or a Google Home or something that connects the whole like fucking thing. It's a like really complex industry. But what those smart meters and like smart the devices are basically just data machines, and they just give you data, right? Just imagine that you would socialize the house, take the old data through like a device that could be essentially like device like Amazon Alexa or Google Home, or smart meter by a utility like Tata Power, or like something like that, right? And they would like project your home, right? And it's not just a home that says I watch Netflix and I go to bed this way and like so forth. It says this is how I live. I am what I live, right? I buy things to like show other people, hence lifestyle branding. This is what I am, right? And with the and like with a house, you could say I have a house. I have a blue house because I use like Tata Power. I watch Netflix and I use Siemens, right? I use screen energy, right? In this, you have merged something that's digital and totally not like sellable to something like gamification. The game here being something like Farmville or Sims, or just like a simulator, like where you're actually comparing yourself to each other, like you do when you buy a car, right? But here you have taken the concept of games, like in a simulator, and put it in a totally other space, right? And to do that, you would have to need game developers and people that know what make people like tick, right?
Agreed, agreed. And you know what? There is a interesting concept in our country. I mean, although it is changing and updating, but
Mm-hmm.
honestly speaking, in our country, at least in the eastern part of our country, we have a
Mm-hmm.
very less, I should say, less amount of education about what is the strength of VR and AR and game development. And
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand the strength of game developers as well. I mean, people feel
Mm-hmm.
game development means some child's play, so anybody can do that. Yes, anybody can do that, true, agreed. But how will you define, how will you think of making a good game, giving a good user experience? That requires a complete different skill set. And talking about engines, yeah, so I have a
Yeah, yeah.
question. I have a very simple question. Would you please enlighten our audience, because this video is going to be there in all social media. So would you
Yeah.
please enlighten our other viewers, other audience,
Mm-hmm.
how big is the industry, and how complex is the industry, and how game developers are actually adding value to a lot of AI based projects. They are actually adding value to defense. They are actually adding value to the banking system. They are adding value to the media industry. I mean, if you just enlighten us, maybe for 10 minutes.
It's funny that you say that. You think that people in India think game development is like a child's play. One, because we all play, and when you see animals, they like also play. Like when we play, in my like opinion, we exit our body and like become someone else. We actually play a role, right? And that's what we all do. When I go to work, and when we are like, you are actually dressing up for a webinar, I'm not, but we are like dressing up for like several roles, right? So I think play is a much more complex process than just to say, child's play, like a game. And I think as soon as we find the like value proposition, hence lifestyle branding, or find a real life value proposition, like Tinder, sex, uh, something else, recognition, right? When you feel this like simplicity, you can start to implement it to other industries, right? And especially in like India, entertainment is a huge part of Indian culture. I mean, Bollywood is one of the biggest entertainment just things there are, right? And there you like put together dance and mythology and stories, and it's a really like interactive thing, which weirdly enough is almost only confined to India. Like it's a really like strange thing. So if you can convince people that game developers can take this ability to tap into like the root of culture and the root of our minds and engage with us in a totally other level than just like play Candy Crush, right? Then you can really start selling something. Like we know how the human mind ticks. You have like in the you have like psychologists, you have marketers, but we know how you really tick.
Exactly,
And
exactly, and that's one of the best thing. We do data analysis. We do understand consumer behavior. We have to understand the market. Then we analyze who will be our target customer, and then we start thinking of making a game. And then most probably after after so much of process, we go for a GDD making. So I have a question from you. I have a question for you from Pinaki. So Pinaki is asking, how does AR or VR apply to education and edutech industry in future? Post COVID, I feel AR and VR is going to play a strong role in content that students will consume. What's your take?
Okay, I think people are just because education is not my strong suit, of course, but it's gamification in the education industry is like the example that's most often used. You actually use games to like actually teach people, and we are also like tech forms of that mediums, and it's mostly going to be for young people. There's the one story that I always think of when I think of edutech and AR and VR and games and like all of that. There was once a 8-year-old lady who took her 7-year-old son for an ice cream car ride. So they were going on a highway to actually get some ice cream. So she has a heart attack under the steering wheel. The 7-year-old on a highway, on a high-speed highway, takes the wheel and parks the car, right? And actually parks the car. And the police afterwards, perplexed of the situation, asked the kid, how did you learn to actually park a car on a freeway? And the only thing that the kid said was, Mario Kart. Mario Kart, only thing. So I think, we are an AI, just, you can't imagine how people are engaging with tech and games and like so forth. Again, I am not a believer in the tech format, right? So AR, like however you implement that into how you interact with an education, then sure. But I think, there is a sweet spot that we're missing, right? And I think we just have to find that sweet spot. And I don't really know the final answer to your question of how you use AR and VR. It's like how to use a
It's
hammer.
actually, it requires a lot of explanation, honestly speaking. I mean, maybe we'll have another
Yeah,
session, Pinaki, and it's a
yeah.
big concept. Honestly speaking, what happens when I do work with multiple other people across
Mhm.
the globe. Uh, Somehow in eastern part of India, we lack a lot of things, and somehow we don't communicate with each other. Maybe that's one of the reasons. But in southern part of India, people are doing massive work. They are doing really, really great work. In fact, people are doing a lot of good work in various part of India, including eastern part of India as well. But somehow for the common people, the maybe the question arises whether they want to update themselves or not. That's the main fun part. Anyway, so I've got another question from Shomodip Shahu. Would
Mhm.
gamification make sense for an e-commerce store using WebGL? Would
Using
would gamification make sense for an e-commerce store using WebGL?
using web.
GL, WebGL.
Yeah, it just depends on how I think, because we are talking about this media thing, right? And I made a scale here that I'm gonna open up here. I think it goes in levels in how you can actually implement gamification to certain types of companies, right? I don't think and media is something, or like gamification is something that you can apply to everything, right? If you find a sweet spot, if you can find a way to let the e-commerce experience make you grow as a human, if you can tap into something that I believe in, like e-commerce, you're buying something, so you are exploiting wealth, right? So if you can somehow show I am this wealthy because I'm buying this and this and this, if you can compare it to other users, right? If you can use a badge system to say, like, Amazon says, you're buying this because you're buying this, right? So if you can make a gamified system of almost not a leaderboard, but you're comparing yourselves to other users, which is almost like best gamification method that you can use, right? If you can do that, then you can use like create a gamified e-commerce store with exclusivity and this, like, this prestige, right? But I wouldn't know how with the tech exactly, but it's
Yep.
just like what type of value proposition you're actually trying to target.
See,
That's
gamification
one.
is always a process. You need to understand. I mean, we have
Yeah,
to
sure. Yeah.
follow the process, and it's a cool process. And frankly speaking, I want to understand another thing. I mean, for the audience, sake of the audience, I want to
Mm-hmm.
understand your company's offering. For an example, the way you guys are working, really, really remarkable work that you are doing.
Oh,
And
thank you.
you run a complete full-fledged music studio, and you make I mean, multiple number of amazing content for the
Oh, okay,
gaming
okay.
industry as well as media industry. So could you just enlighten us, all our participants, about your company, how you are doing it, and what is your
Mhm.
growth? So maybe, see, the main option, or rather I should say the main purpose of hosting these webinars are actually handshake with each other, collaborate with each other, and grow
Sure.
together. So that's the purpose. So if you can
Yeah.
share, most probably a
Yeah.
couple of us can maybe shake hand, and they'll be more than happy. If you are okay, they'll be more than happy to collaborate with you, maybe grow together and make things happen. So over to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I mean, on the end point, yeah, you can always email me if you want, and I always should have my email now, so of course. And yeah, it's not the dress. The music
Before
is
that,
nothing.
before that, could you please share about your, works, share about your,
Yeah, yeah,
beautiful journey, so that will be great for the audience.
yeah. So to keep it ideological and with the same theme as media, and say like how we are actually using gamification and media and like music. And we are a platform where you can create, distribute, and socialize your music. We are kind of in a sweet spot of social media, games, and music. That's the same as sweet spot for media. And yet, yes, this, when you're talking about the journey, I am a former musician, so I used to tour around the world for several years. We found out that music is much more than sound. It's like a communication system to say how we dress, how we talk, how we feel, and so forth. But we always found that like music innovation was like something to take a passive like medium that is supported in music, that is sound, right, and have a really good distribution system for like a passive medium that is not, right. So with what we did is that we created this ecosystem where you try to like thrive in this musical ecosystem in like a gamified matter, almost like role-playing games, right? So you actually create songs in under a minute, you like actually put it into the system as you try to promote yours or like someone else's music, right? So it's I think if you say TikTok meets Instagram meets World of Warcraft, it's not that like far off, right? But it's just a new way how to identify yourself also visually and audibly through music, right? So now the 14-year-old girl in America can partake in this musical ecosystem. And with the gamification, you always talk about the game of music. It's like a music business, right? So we are much more gamifying the music business in a way. So you can try to monetize out of the music, but you can also give it out for free and like try to get popular, just like in the music industry. So what we have simplified really is just the language of music. That was before so elitist. You had to have some musical experience or a background or like something like that. But with our platform, you can create just quality music, just you user-generated content without having the need of musical background or experience. So the experience come from this like a media. You can become recognized for the musical achievements without any musical background whatsoever. Right. So it takes something from the digital space, that's our platform, and you can actually become recognized outside of the platform. Right. So that's how we like from the get-go we use gamification in that. How are you going to stand out? We give it a tool. How are you going to be viral and how are you be like going to identify yourself musically within this ecosystem? So that's how we like and that's where I start to um, think about this and like a media concept. Like why is this not done with other products, right? It's because like everyone wants to become recognized, and music is such a strong like gene in us. We want to become recognized for music,
It's
and
not, so easy to make music or any kind of background
that's
score.
true.
It's not
That's
that
true.
easy. I mean, we just enjoy it, but we don't feel that it's so complicated. It takes so much time, you know.
Believe me, it was a really difficult process to simplify the whole music making system, and I can just share it with you how you actually make the music. It's almost offensively simple now, because it was like between how can you make something that you can puzzle together that's going to be engaging but yet simple, and not to like how can you go from something like that's not going to be too complex but not too simple. How are you gonna like use colors and output and like all of that to actually give you the tools so your creativity can actually lead the way, right? So you tap into your creativity and not your musical talent. And I agree, it's not a simple. It was not a simple task to do that. It was one of the hardest things I've done, just to figure that
Awesome.
thing out.
Awesome. So I have a question from a couple of them, but due to time, I'll stick to only one question. So I have a long question from uh, Mr. Manoj. So
Mm-hmm.
Manoj is saying that Manoj, I'm just reading your question. Is it fine, or you want to read it?
No, it's fine. You can read. No problem.
Okay, so great. So like he's saying that in education system we have a stress on students, parents, teacher,
Mm-hmm.
institutes, and we have a continuous process. Like we have a couple of subjects like engineering, science, management. You have a
Mm-hmm.
skills. Then majority of people, they understand that sports and art are difficult to master and
Mm-hmm.
more interesting. They don't have a clear career path. They don't have a clear career path, and they have less understanding about their job and structure and other things. So game playing and development falls in same category. Game playing is not considered as mainstream career, and so the game development, which is driven by art, technology, logic, networking. So I'm just enhancing your question for you. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
his question is, what is the best way to break this stereotype? Make gameplay more mainstream in the early age, or promote game development as more traditional skill such as software development? I believe that the second uh, uh, is the answer. I mean, over to you. So his question is
Mm-hmm.
how to break the stereotype, make gameplay more mainstream for early age, or promote game development as more traditional skill such as software development.
See, that's a really, really complex question. I mean, I think you should always try to democratize something to actually make it simpler for people to learn, right? And I think the education system now, just in general, is an 18th century education system now. It's not engaged at all, right? So you actually have to change that. In my opinion, and that's just my opinion, the game development field is not advanced enough, so we can say is almost as important as like becoming like a software developer. Like there has to be a system in place where you can actually say, if you become like a game developer slash software developer, right? You can step into all of the banks, all of the automobile industry, basically all commercial industries, because you can add extra value, right? There are millions of software developers, but there are not many game designers and also software developers slash marketeers slash networkers and like slash this that can take your company to the next level. I think you just have to bring this understanding that game development is not you necessarily just making like a mobile app, right? Game
Yes,
development is like a marketing tactic almost.
yes,
It is a marketing. How do you engage with people? And I always say that marketing is the philosophy of people, philosophy of how you engage with people. And I think game development is like the same way. And like he is saying, networking, like marketing, and design and output and input and like all of that. Well, that's the same with marketing, the same with business and all of that, right? But I just generally believe that game developers, people that go into like game design and the game development at this moment in time, are so focused on games and are so much like game nuts that it has to be almost like a revolution to say, no, this has to be applied to every other industry as well. Right? So I think this conversation has to take place before.
agreed,
So
agreed.
I hope this is a good answer to this really long question. So, yeah, thanks. No worries, man. You're welcome.
So I'll ask this question to Manoj actually. I mean,
Yeah.
does it sound okay if we have more, you can say, collaborative approach with university and the industry, wherein we can actually enhance those kind of skill set? So as per my small understanding, working in this industry for last 2 decades, I feel that we actually need a system. We actually need a ecosystem where we can talk about the gaming technology rather than only game development. So gaming technology can be utilized in multiple number of industries: automotive, education, real estate, a lot of, I mean, everywhere you can use that. It depends how you are using it. It depends how you are educating people to utilize those kind of innovative technologies. So with this note, I'll be thanking our speaker to come live from uh, Iceland, and share his knowledge, his his details, and he'll be more than happy to collaborate with all of our community, and we'll be more than happy to host him. Let the COVID-19 over. Let us welcome him in our Indian nature. Let him come to our country. I'll be more than happy to host you, my friend, in our country. So most
Awesome.
probably in some physical event, I'll be more than happy to host you, take you to some places, give you
Awesome.
some good Indian food, and introduce you with our community people. So thank you so much, and thank you all the audience. Thanks for the lovely questions, and we'll be
Mhm.
hopefully in touch, and see you soon. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.